Imagine if I revealed that Max Verstappen's historic record as the youngest Formula One competitor can no longer be broken. And it's not because there's a lack of talent on the grid to surpass this legendary mark. The thing is, Red Bull had exactly the right candidate to achieve this feat, but a unique opportunity was lost forever. We're talking about Arvid Lindblad, the promising young British-Swedish driver who many experts consider to be the greatest prospect to come out of the Red Bull Academy since Verstappen himself. And believe me, we have an incredible story to share today. Let's start from the beginning. Arvid Lindblad is not just another ordinary driver. This 18-year-old talent, who came of age on Friday, August 8th, is widely recognized as the most talented young driver in the Red Bull training program since Max Verstappen emerged on the motorsport scene. What an impressive comparison, right? The FIA, in a truly exceptional and unprecedented decision, granted Lindblad a special license in June of this year. This authorization served as exclusive permission to compete in Formula One, even though he had not yet reached the age of majority. It was a concession that could have completely rewritten the history books of the sport. To put this decision into perspective, since the FIA established age restrictions after Verstappen's impressive debut, no other competitor had ever obtained this special authorization. Lindblad literally became the first to break this regulatory barrier. This highlights not only the youngster's potential, but also the credibility that Red Bull has placed in him as the team's successor. However, an unexpected development took everyone by surprise. Red Bull, despite having this extraordinary talent in its ranks, and even with the special license validated by the FIA, was unable to find an opportunity to enter Lindblad in an official competition before he turned 18. And do you know why? Because the main team has Verstappen, who obviously won't be leaving his position anytime soon, and Yuki Tsunoda firmly in second place. At Racing Bulls, the associated team, Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar, are performing so convincingly that there was simply no room for promotion during the season. The scenario becomes even more paradoxical when we realize that Red Bull has one of the most competitive youth academies on the grid. Lawson has already demonstrated his abilities in previous appearances, while Hadjar is developing a consistent campaign in Formula 2. This abundance of promise, which should be an advantage, has become an impediment to Lindblad's early debut. What makes this situation even more fascinating is that Lindblad had his first taste of Formula One at the British Grand Prix the previous month. The youngster took over Tsunoda's RB21 during the first free practice session at Silverstone, and what a performance it was. Lindblad recorded the 14th fastest time and was only half a second behind Verstappen, the current four-time world champion. For a 17-year-old competitor making his official debut on a race weekend, this result was absolutely extraordinary. However, let's examine this performance in more detail. Half a second behind Verstappen at Silverstone is not insignificant, but it is also not intimidating for a four-time world champion. What is really impressive is the consistency Lindblad showed throughout the session. He was not only fast on a single lap, but maintained a steady and competitive pace throughout the practice session, something that many veteran drivers struggle to do. Christian Horner, who was still in charge of Red Bull at the time, was full of praise for the youngster. According to Horner, Lindblad performed exceptionally well, especially considering that Silverstone is an extremely demanding track. The youngster's return was objective and precise, revealing remarkable maturity for someone so young. Horner even stated that Lindblad definitely represents hope for the future of the team. And there's more. Max Verstappen himself, who has known Lindblad since his karting days, offered valuable guidance to the youngster. Verstappen advised Lindblad not to try to become the next Max, but to remain authentic. This is wisdom that only someone who has experienced this kind of pressure can convey. Verstappen emphasized that Lindblad should focus on his own progress, gradually, without being influenced by the titles that will inevitably come. The connection between the two drivers is no coincidence. Verstappen mentioned that Lindblad competed for his best friend's karting team, which indicates that he has been following the young driver's progress for quite some time. When someone of Verstappen's stature praises a driver in training, it carries considerable weight in the paddock. Now let's look at the historical context of this whole situation. Verstappen made his Formula One debut in 2015 at just 17 years old, driving for Toro Rosso in the Australian Grand Prix. He established himself as the youngest competitor in the history of the category, and his spectacular rise was so remarkable that the FIA itself decided to introduce a minimum age for the first time in Formula One. Since then, no driver under the age of 18 has been allowed to officially participate in the sport. Lindblad would have been the first to obtain an exception to this rule, but the schedule simply did not favor his cause. The Hungarian Grand Prix, which took place recently in Budapest, officially represented Lindblad's last chance to compete as a minor in Formula One. With his birthday on the following Friday, the historic window closed for good. Verstappen's record as the only 17-year-old driver to compete in the top category of motorsport is now permanently protected, but the question remains, will this really influence Lindblad's career? Looking at his current Formula 2 campaign, driving for the Campos team, the answer is not so clear. The youngster is only 7th in the championship, 62 points behind leader Leonardo Fornaroli, with only 4 rounds remaining in the season. Not exactly what we would expect from Red Bull's supposed next phenomenon. The last few weeks have been especially challenging for Lindblad. At the Belgian Grand Prix, he was disqualified from the main race after his tires were found to be below the minimum pressure set by Pirelli. A week later, in Hungary, he received a 5-second penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage in a dispute with another driver, dropping from 4th to 10th place in the sprint race. These setbacks raise important questions about whether Lindblad is truly ready to move forward or if he needs more time to mature. The pressure of being constantly compared to Verstappen certainly doesn't help, and perhaps this mandatory break is just what he needs to focus on his own development without the added pressure of breaking historical records. The situation in Formula 2 also reflects the harsh reality of contemporary motorsport. It is not enough to have natural talent. Consistency, maturity to manage pressure, and the ability to quickly learn from mistakes are also necessary. Lindblad is experiencing this school of life right now, and the results of the coming months will determine much of his future at Red Bull. The reality is that Formula One has not suffered from this circumstance. Verstappen remains a unique historical milestone, and Lindblad still has his entire career ahead of him to prove his worth. Occasionally, the timing is simply not ideal, but that does not mean that talent dissipates. Red Bull clearly sees potential in this young man, otherwise it would not have invested so much time and resources in his development. In the end, records are there to be remembered, not necessarily broken. Max Verstappen will always be the only 17-year-old driver to participate in the modern era of Formula One, and that has a historical value that no one can take away from him. For Lindblad, the focus now should be on building his own legend, without rushing, but with the same determination that has brought him this far. What do you think? Does this pressure to set records do more harm than good to young talent? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any behind-the-scenes analysis of Formula One.